Hi there, welcome to AATV. I'm your host Gadge, Harvey, and today we're going to talk about personal camo in Airsoft. Now I'd like to start, but I was waiting for Tom to turn up, so I might have to start without him.
Right mate, I've got my PMC loadout on. It's perfect for woodland, isn't it?
Get in the woods and change. So, now Tom's off to get changed. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a basic cam and concealment lesson about personal cam. Now, I'm unashamedly stealing this from early 80s cadet and army training manuals. It's nothing secret, and because it's an army manual, not all of it is appropriate for airsoft. So at times, I've changed things to make them a little bit more applicable to what we do as a hobby. Oh, there you are.
Mate, is that any better?
Yeah, it's pretty good, but we're going to need to improve on that DPM a little bit, I think.
Well, I raided my manky green surplus collection.
But you look good, mate, but there's still some things I'm going to give you away. You've got to say, can you spot where Tom is in this shot? Pretty hard to see, yeah? Some of you, good observation skills, can probably see it. Tom, can you reveal yourself, please? So when we're playing Airsoft, if you're just there for an open day having fun, you might not wear camouflage at all, but for those of you that want that military look and you do want to stay hidden, the enemy are looking for you, so don't make it as easy for them as you can do. Actually make it a little bit harder. A good start is always a camouflage uniform, but there is more to it than just wearing murky green shades. We're going to look at shape, surface, shine, shadow, silhouette and speed of movement. First off, we're going to start with spacing. It's not always the first one in a lesson plan, but let's be honest, in Airsoft, we're not moving in platoon formations, we're not even moving in section formations most of the time. So unless you've got a big team of regular guys where you patrol together and know how you patrol, let's throw that one out the book because we don't need it. In short, don't have regular spaces between you because the human eye picks up patterns like that quite easily. The next topic we're going to look at is shine. Now shine is quite an easy one to nullify. You'll have looked in previous loadout episodes, both Tom and myself have applied tape to buttons. Not only does that protect the thread on the button, but it also stops plastic buttons shining and glinting. Bigger problems tend to be things like this buckle. You could scuff that up, you can tape it. You'll find in most modern military kit, if they use metal, it's been anodized or painted so it doesn't shine as much. You see units blacking out cap badges, etc. Really, if it reflects the light, you want to try and stop it the best you can. So we're looking at paint, we're looking at tape, even mud. If it's a glass on an optic or a scope, you can put some scrim net over the front of it or get a kill flash. Any of those things will stop that light, giving a reflective shine and giving your position away in a game of Airsoft. He's using a bit of foliage to block the line of sight, but not much. But more importantly, his surface matches perfectly with the background, he's not silhouetted, and most importantly here, he's in a lot of shadow. Now we're just going to zoom in and you might be able to spot Tom that a little bit easier. Shadow is another one that's not always applicable to when you're playing, because on a day like today, the sun's overhead, middle of the afternoon, there's not a massive amount of shadow being cast from tall objects. It's all pretty much overhead. Now when we talk about shadow, we're on about the idea that if you keep yourself in the shadows, you're harder to see. But more importantly, sometimes your shadow can sort of advertise where you're going. In a recent game Tom and I played, urban game, we were playing off against each other. Tom got the drop on me because he saw my shadow way before he saw me. In the same way that we don't want to let our shadow advertise where we are, we don't want to let our silhouette do that either. So perhaps it goes without saying that when you're choosing your cover and your camouflage, also don't pick obvious isolated cover. A single tree in a line of foliage is going to draw the human eye to it. Equally, make sure you can actually hide behind the thing. If you're a pretty big weightlifter guy, don't pick a thin tree. Now, the biggest way to give your silhouette away is to skyline against it. So when we say skyline, we mean if there's a horizon line, like we'll show you in a moment, you want to make sure that you're below that or there's cover behind you when you're on that horizon line. If there's just you and a blue sky behind you, you're very visible, you're very obvious, and you will get spotted. In a more urban environment, it's even more important not to break those straight lines of cover. So if Tom needs to look over this hard standing, you can spot him straight away. Which is why when we talk about cover in a later episode, we'll talk about looking around cover or through cover rather than over cover. Because as Tom says, someone sticking the head over a wall, it breaks that straight line of the wall with a big round head and it's very visible to the eye. If any one of these S's is critical to keeping yourself concealed during airsoft, it's going to be surface. Now we've touched on it briefly, but your surface should match the background. So when Tom emerged from the woods earlier, that lumberjack shirt, the bare skin of your legs, all those things are instant indicators to the eye to go, that should not be there. Now you're dressed in more neutral tones in a disruptive pattern material of DPM, much harder to see instantly, but that surface can still be improved. For a start, your face is shining terribly.
My hands.
Yeah, you've got very white skin, being a Caucasian male, and also the oils in your skin will catch light and reflect it. So as we talked about shine earlier, obviously your skin isn't going to shine like a light or a glass or a beacon of any sort, but it is still going to be more visible. Even so to the point that soldiers in the British Army and other armies who might have darker coloured skin tones still cam up.
So Gadge, I'm going to cam up, get my cam paint on for the surface section of the lecture. I've got my handy makeup compact with me.
Yep. They've improved a long way since we started using those in cadets. So what you need to do first of all is you need to provide a base to what all you're doing. So a lot of people will put their camouflage cream on and it will be too little, far too little, as we'll show you. So a lot of people go for that stylised Arnold Schwarzenegger commando sort of and pull themselves a little black stripe over the eyes. American footballers, it's no good. There's still way too much white skin on show there. There's also bits that you won't even notice. So even though you've got a beard, under your chin here, we have what we used to call a sniper's triangle. A lot of people forget that. Also your hands are still bare skin colour. Now you might say, well, I wear gloves, Gadge. Not a problem. If you take those gloves off to read a map and forget to put them on, you'll be patrolling along and you've got these bright white hands. So that is too little. Okay. So the way we get around that is we do what we say is just about right. So we start off with a base. So what I would do then is I would spit on a little bit of cam cream in my hands, rub it into my hands so I get a fairly good even coverage, and then use that to get what I would call a coffee coloured shade pretty much over the whole of my exposed skin tone. Right. Okay, so you've got your base on now. Okay. And that's pretty good, but it's not disrupting the shape of your face. Okay. So you've got that very obvious 2 eyes, ears, nose, mouth, symmetrical thing that the body and the human eye looks for all the time. It's face recognition. Really good at it. Absolutely perfect. If it wasn't, we wouldn't know where our friends were half the time from distances. So what we need to do now is we need to break up that outline. Now there are 2 ways of doing this. There's the British Army way and there's a US Army way. Now I'm going to tell you the US Army way, but we're going to do it the British Army way because it's a lot easier to do the British Army way. So the US Army used the dark brown and the light green, and they would apply dark shades to raised areas like the nose, the cheekbone, etc., and lighter shades to the shaded areas like inside the eye. You quite often see them looking quite weird doing that, but it does work. Now what I prefer to do, and it's really quick, and we did this in the field all the time, is I would put a dollop of that on each finger and I would just drag it across my face that way and maybe once the other way, and you get quite a random spread, because what we're trying to do is get rid of that regularity. When you see people with perfectly done tiger stripes, they're too regular, they're too clean, they don't look irregular, they don't look like sticks in nature, etc. Okay. It's good. So I would personally maybe extend that stripe a little bit there just to break up that cheekbone, because you've got very obvious cheekbone. Just divide it in 2. Yep. Now, quite often your helmet or your hat will cover that bit, but you do take it off. So as you've done, it's always a good idea just to cam up the forehead a little bit more. So we're just going to put a tiny bit more on the forehead, because if you did take your hat off for any reason or it fell off, you might be really, really obvious. This is why the British Army and many other militaries work in pairs and battle buddies. That is a really good point, Tom. So you generally wouldn't do this for yourself. You'd be doing what I'm doing for Tom here. You'd be spotting bits that are missing, and yeah, buddy system for nearly everything. So yeah, there we go. I'd be relatively happy with that. And the worst thing is, if you're playing a very long game or a big mil sim, you might have to do this 2 or 3 times because you will sweat it off and it will wear off. But now with your bush hat back on, another word of warning is certain cam creams sting like heck when they sweat into your eyes. So a lot of people do avoid putting it across the eyebrow or on top of the eyelid if they can help it. Some are great, others not so. So check your own cam cream before you slather it on, go to a game, sweat, and then you can't see what you're doing, and then it's compromising your eyesight and your safety with your glasses. Perhaps one of the most critical aspects of camouflage in airsoft and in the real world is shape. Now, over the millions of years humanity's been around, it's evolved to have a very good human eye at spotting things that shouldn't be there. It's very good at spotting irregular patterns. It's very good at spotting things like straight lines of rifles in a nature environment where there aren't that many truly straight lines. It's very good at spotting very round and evenly spaced helmet shapes where most rocks are a little bit jagged or not symmetrical. It's even really good at spotting colours that shouldn't be there. So in a lot of the early lessons, you get told that black isn't a natural colour and to try and avoid it. And snipers would paint their boots, etc. Now black does exist in nature. You get things like jet and coal as natural minerals. Some birds like crows are almost jet black. But in reality, there's not massive amounts of black. Now you can go too far the other way. One of the reasons why the American UCP bluish camo doesn't work so well is because they took all the black out of it. So there's no artificial shadows created on the surface of that camo scheme. So when we're talking about shape, perhaps the most obvious thing to recognise, and we talked about it when looking around or over cover, is this head and shoulders shape. Now you want to try and break that up as much as you can, but even things as simple as a bush hat make your head less obvious. Sticking a bit of foliage under your shoulder straps or the epaulets of your jacket can do it. You don't have to wear a ghillie suit, that can help. You don't have to look like a Wookiee. All you need to do is break up that very, very obvious head and shoulders, two arms, symmetrical eyes, ears. Those are all those shapes that have been bred into us, hunters and predators, for absolutely centuries. Okay, we can clearly see that Tom's shape is very heavily broken up now by the added foliage. And lying down, I know he's there, you know he's there, but a casual observer, someone playing a game of Airsoft who wasn't expecting someone to there, you could ambush them from maybe a few metres away, which is quite how devastatingly effective good personal cam can be. However, it works well because Tom is on the edge of this grassy field. If you were to move back 2 metres into the much greener underside of that tree, all of a sudden he's a little bit more obvious. Again, it's making sure that your surface matches your background at all times. You can't always do it, but think about where you're moving. When you're making a tactical bound to that next bit of cover, think, can I get to somewhere where my camouflage suits? Now, the human eye, as it's been evolved over those centuries and millennia to spot regular shapes, it's also got very, very good as a hunter and as a gatherer of spotting things moving, especially rapid movement from prey animals, and especially in your peripheral vision. You will quite often see things that your conscious brain hasn't noticed, and then you'll home in on it straight away. So, speed of movement, if you move cautiously, if you move carefully, don't make too much noise, don't move too fast, you're often quite hard to see. And again, point in hand, in the Vietnam War, the NVA and the VC would wear black or dark blue or tan uniforms that perhaps didn't match the jungle quite as well as you'd think. Static troops in ambush, like a VC ambush on the US, if they're not moving, they're hard to see in those shadows. As soon as you start moving, you start getting spotted. Now I said earlier that our camouflage we settled with for moving around different areas was perhaps too much. I was lying, this is too much. As you can see here, Tom's face is all one colour, it's green, it's shining because he's got so much cam cream on. He's got foliage from multiple different areas that don't really sit together. If you spin round to the back, Tom, some of it's even dead and wilted. And at no point lying in any area is he going to look like a natural bush or foliage area. It's just too fake. If he goes prone, his head foliage is way too high, so that any movement of his head is exaggerated and will give him away. It'll be a whispering, moving bush. So you can do too much camouflage as we show here.
So I'd like to thank Gadge for coming down and giving us our personal camo lecture. It's been a while since you've given one of those, Gadge.
Mid-90s.
It's been really good fun. As you can see, I look ridiculous, but some of the lessons that we've learned I think can be really useful in the airsoft field, and I've been doing them for years with pretty much great success. Even just a little bit of cam, a little bit of paint, and you can blend into the woods and the backgrounds and really take your airsofting to the next level. If you want to help support this project, we have a Patreon scheme to keep us as independent as possible. There's a link down in the description. If you want to buy one of our amazing t-shirts, there's also a link in the description to our Teespring store. Most importantly, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. To the pub, Gadge.
To the pub.
Do you think I should clean off a bit first, mate?
No, mate. I'll be fine with it. Just tell him you're a forest ranger or something.
Forest ranger. I'm the Green Power Ranger.